The frequency of alcohol, how it lowers your spiritual energy. Have you ever wondered why your soul seems to hide after you drink? No, it's not just the hangover. It's deeper. There's a frequency in alcohol that almost no one talks about, but the ancients knew it well. They understood that this sacred liquid could either open portals to the divine or dangerous doors to the unseen. Today, alcohol is treated like fun, a social norm, a weekend escape. But what if I told you that every sip might be silently lowering your spiritual vibration? Yes, you heard right. While you're laughing, toasting, feeling free, your spiritual protection begins to fade. And this isn't just a theory, it's ancient wisdom ignored by modern eyes. Did you know alcohol can create cracks in your energy field and attract entities that feed on imbalance? Sounds extreme? It's not. Because the moment you drink, you're tuning into a frequency where high-vibe spiritual guidance can no longer reach you. But here's the twist. You can reverse all of it. Yes, you can restore your energy, your clarity, your sacred connection, and it starts now. If you felt something's off lately, if your heart is craving clarity, peace, truth, then what you're about to discover may change everything. Because when you understand the true frequency of alcohol, you finally understand why you've been feeling so far from yourself. The sacred origins of alcohol in ancient rituals. They used to call it the liquid of the gods, but not just because it tasted good. Imagine a time when the divine wasn't up in the sky, far away. It was here, present, in the fire, in the wind, in the silence of the temples. Back in ancient Egypt, for example, wine wasn't used to relax. It was used to prepare the body, the spirit, and the energy field. It was part of a sacred ceremony, guided by priests who understood its power. Every sip was intentional. Nothing about it was casual. The body was seen as a sacred vessel, and alcohol was treated as a living offering, like liquid incense that rose to the heavens. And that's exactly what gave it strength. Reverence is what activated the substance. Without it, it was just fermented grape. But with it, it was transformation. In ancient Greece, the approach was more theatrical but equally sacred. Dionysus wasn't just the god of wine. He was the god of divine ecstasy, of that trance-like madness that tears down the ego and brings the soul to the forefront. His rituals weren't just wild parties, they were portals. People drank not to forget themselves, but to remember who they were without the masks. The wine was a way to silence the analytical mind and allow the divine energy to flow. It was about surrender. It was about touching something that couldn't be seen or explained. That's why not everyone was allowed to participate in these rituals. Only the prepared, only those who had been through inner initiation, only those who were ready to face the divine in themselves. Shamanic tribes followed a similar path. For them, alcohol wasn't for socializing, it was for listening to the forest, to the ancestors, to the spirits of the earth. During rites of passage, for example, a young man might be given a naturally fermented drink, then sent alone into the woods to fast, to dream, to meet his animal guide. These weren't drunken escapades. They were deeply guided spiritual initiations. The drink was just a key to a door that had to be opened from within. And that door wasn't always gentle. It could show you your lineage, your future, your responsibility. And that was the point, to grow into who you were meant to be. And let's not forget the ingredients. In ancient times, alcohol was alive, made by hand, made with herbs, moon cycles, chants. The fermentation process was itself a ritual. Songs were sung over the mixtures. Symbols were carved into the vessels. There was magic in the making, real, intentional, vibrational magic. Today, it's pasteurized, industrial, hollow. But back then, every drop had a signature, an energy code. That's what made it sacred. And when you consume something sacred, your entire field responds. That's the difference. It wasn't about the substance, it was about the energy encoded within it. The Mesopotamians, the Hindus, the Sumerians, all spoke of sacred elixirs. The soma mentioned in the Vedas, still a mystery to this day, may have been alcoholic or not. What matters is that it was used as a medium to reach the stars, to communicate with the higher realms. And the fact that this concept shows up across cultures, across languages, across centuries, tells you something. It wasn't about getting drunk. It was about stepping into a different level of awareness, a different layer of existence, where the self dissolves and the soul speaks. In many of these ancient practices, only the spiritually trained could touch the sacred drink. It wasn't something given freely. Fasting, prayer, and purification were essential. They knew the risks. They knew that opening a spiritual portal without preparation could lead to chaos. That's why everything had rhythm, everything had timing. Drinking was an act of reverence, not indulgence. And when that structure is removed, what enters through the portal isn't always what you hoped for. And that brings us to something crucial, something we often overlook today. Back then, alcohol wasn't used casually. It was sacred, it was symbolic, it was protected. But the moment that reverence faded, the portal changed. And if a portal opens both ways, what happens when it's left unguarded? When the sacred turns profane, the fall of spiritual intention, something started to shift, slowly, subtly. The drink that once connected souls to divine realms began to lose its purpose. What was once a sacred ritual, full of meaning and intention, turned into entertainment, into noise, into routine. As empires rose and cultures grew more decadent, alcohol began to be used not to elevate the spirit, but to escape it. The Roman Empire, for example, is a prime example of this decline. Wine, once used in sacred ceremonies, became the fuel for endless feasts, chaotic orgies, and public spectacles. It lost its soul. The reverence disappeared, and with it the spiritual frequency that made the drink sacred. It's important to understand that alcohol doesn't hold its energy by itself. It amplifies the energy of its environment. When consumed with reverence, it can act as a gateway. But when consumed with ego, desire, and carelessness, it becomes an anchor that drags the spirit down. The intention behind the use is what shapes the result. And when that intention is lost, the substance becomes something else entirely. What was once a bridge to higher realms became a staircase into confusion. The drink didn't change. The way people used it did. And that shift marked the beginning of a long spiritual descent that still affects us today. The Romans, once deeply spiritual in their early traditions, eventually began using alcohol not to open portals, but to silence the soul. It became entertainment for the masses, pleasure without purpose. A cultural shift where the body was worshipped, but the spirit was forgotten. Festivals lasted for days, and wine flowed like water. But if you looked closely, behind the laughter, behind the excess, there was something missing. A void, a deep emptiness, a hunger that alcohol could never satisfy. And instead of filling it with presence, people filled it with more noise, more stimulation, more distraction. What makes this even more dangerous is that it didn't happen overnight. It was a slow fading of sacredness, a gradual erosion of meaning. Rituals were mocked, spiritual practices were dismissed as superstition. The divine was replaced by the indulgent. And as the collective intention behind alcohol shifted, so did the energy it carried. It's no longer about the drink, it's about what we've allowed it to become, what we've turned it into. The shift from sacrament to commodity, from sacred portal to social lubricant, from conscious ritual to unconscious routine. And that unconsciousness is the root of the problem. When alcohol became part of casual culture, it lost its vibration, or better said, it gained a different one, a lower one. And when something becomes part of culture without context, it creates energetic loops, loops of behavior, loops of dysfunction, generational cycles. We've seen it, families torn apart, relationships broken, promises made and shattered under the influence. What was once a divine tool became a weapon against ourselves. And the worst part, we've normalized it. We've called it just having fun. But fun without awareness always comes at a cost. And that cost is your energy, your clarity, your ability to connect, your sovereignty over your own body, mind, and spirit. The truth is, when we forget the purpose of a symbol, we open the door to inversion. Sacred tools, when misused, don't just lose their power, they turn on us. They become distortions. And that's exactly what happened. The alcohol didn't stop working. It just started working differently. So now we're here, in a world where drinking is seen as casual, even expected, where questioning it makes you the strange one. But deep down, something in you knows the truth. You feel it. The pull, the disconnection, the heaviness after the high. And that's where we begin to ask the deeper question. Not whether alcohol is bad, but whether it's still sacred. And if it's not, what frequency is it really tuning you into? The frequency of alcohol, what it does to your spiritual vibration. Everything in this universe is vibration. Everything. From the breath you take to the thoughts you think, your energy is constantly tuning itself to frequencies. Some high, some low. And alcohol? Alcohol carries a frequency of its own, and it's not neutral, it's not subtle, it's low. When it enters your body, it immediately begins to lower your field. Your aura dims, your chakras slow, your clarity fogs. And what used to feel sharp, aligned, vibrant, becomes dull, fragmented, heavy. You may not notice it the first time, but over time it compounds. Your spiritual perception gets quieter. The messages get distorted. The connection weakens. This isn't just poetic language, it's energetic reality. Think of your energy, body like a finely tuned instrument. When you're clear, it hums. When you're grounded, it resonates. But when alcohol is introduced, it's like pouring water into a fire. Something fizzles, something fades. That's why so many people report feeling disconnected, scattered, even spiritually numb after drinking. It's not about guilt. It's not about shame. It's about frequency. The substance doesn't just affect your body, it scrambles your energetic communication with the higher realms. And for those who are energetically sensitive, empaths, mediums, healers, the effect is even stronger. Alcohol doesn't just lower their own frequency, it disrupts their ability to read energy clearly. It weakens their intuitive defenses. It opens their field to things they wouldn't normally invite in. Some report feeling surrounded by heaviness for days after drinking. Others speak of dreams turning chaotic or suddenly feeling watched. These aren't random occurrences, they're energetic consequences. And once you become aware of it, you start to see it everywhere. The body has mechanisms to protect your energy, your intuition, your discernment. But alcohol numbs those mechanisms. It opens the field, but not with guidance. It exposes, but without protection. It makes you more receptive. But to what? Anything, anyone, whatever is in the room, the bar, the party, the club. And not everything in those spaces is friendly. Not everything that enters is just a mood. There are entities that wait for the perfect moment, when your light dims, when your awareness slips, when your aura leaks. That's when they whisper. That's when they latch on. It's why spiritual traditions emphasize fasting, not just of food, but of energy. They knew when the body is clean, the field is strong. When the mind is clear, the spirit speaks. Alcohol, on the other hand, clouds both. And the longer you use it, the more your energetic foundation erodes. You stop hearing the inner voice. You stop trusting the inner knowing. You start confusing distraction with joy, escape with peace. And that confusion, that's where the true danger lies. Here's something practical. Go without alcohol for 30 days. During that time, meditate daily, even just 10 minutes. Journal your thoughts. Observe your dreams. Pay attention to synchronicities. You will notice something shift. Slowly at first, then rapidly. Your thoughts become clearer. Your reactions become calmer. You begin to feel your own presence again. That's your natural frequency returning. And once it does, alcohol starts to feel foreign, out of place, unnecessary, because your body remembers the truth. But the most disturbing part, most people never give themselves the chance to feel that contrast. They live years, decades, under a subtle fog, thinking it's normal, not realizing their field is carrying more than their own energy, not realizing that what they drink doesn't just affect their liver, it affects their soul. And when you finally see the impact, you can't unsee it. You begin to question everything, not from fear, but from awakening. Because if the frequency of alcohol can pull you down, what else is it inviting in? Spirits and possessions, the door that alcohol opens. Let's get into the part no one really wants to talk about, the invisible consequences, the spiritual side effects. You see, alcohol doesn't just lower your vibration, it opens doors. And I don't mean metaphorically, I mean literally. Your aura, your energy field is your spiritual home, it's your first line of defense. And when you drink, that protective layer weakens, it becomes thin, porous. Imagine leaving your front door cracked open at night, not locked, not watched, just open. What might wander in? What kind of energy would feel invited? Across spiritual traditions, there's a recurring warning. Alcohol attracts spirits. Not the helpful kind, not the ancestral kind, but the dense ones, the parasitic ones, the ones who lost their physical form and linger around humans looking for sensations, emotions, and energy to feed on. Spiritism calls them obsessors. Umbanda calls them kiumbas. Other cultures just call them shadows. But no matter the name, they all work the same way. They feed off chaos, confusion, and emotional instability, and alcohol provides the perfect environment for them to attach. Ever noticed how some people completely change when they drink? Not just their mood, but their face, their tone, their presence. Some become aggressive, others seductive. Some go silent, lost in their own minds. These aren't just personality shifts. They can be signs of energetic interference. There are countless reports of people blacking out and waking up with no memory of what they said or did, as if someone or something else had taken the wheel. And maybe that's exactly what happened. In darker spiritual practices, this mechanism is even used intentionally. Some rituals call for alcohol specifically to weaken someone's spiritual defenses, making them easier to influence, control, or possess. It's like turning off the house alarm before a break-in. Once the protective barrier is down, anything can walk through the door. And while most people drink casually, without any spiritual intention, their energy still reacts the same way. Vulnerability is vulnerability, whether conscious or not. And there are energies waiting to capitalize on that. Think about the environments where alcohol is most consumed. Bars, clubs, chaotic parties. These places often carry a thick spiritual atmosphere. You can feel it. Heaviness, frenzy, confusion, lust, anger, sometimes despair. And when people drink in those environments, their aura syncs with that energy. They open up to it. And that's when spirits feed. Some linger only for the night. Others stay for weeks, months, years. And you wonder why your life feels stuck. Why you keep attracting the same people, the same emotions. What if you're not alone in your own field? Now, this doesn't mean everyone who drinks is possessed, but it does mean that every drink is a risk, a lowering of defense, a subtle invitation, and over time, those invitations build up. You begin to carry weight that isn't yours, thoughts that don't sound like you, desires that feel foreign, darkness that didn't used to be there. And the worst part? It all feels so normal because it happens gradually, quietly, until you can't remember who you were before the fog set in. To protect yourself, you need to recognize what's really happening. Awareness is the first weapon. Spiritual hygiene is the second. Practices like grounding, smoke cleansing, sound baths, and daily prayer or meditation are not just rituals, they're shields. They clean the house. But even better than cleaning up is not letting anything in to begin with. That starts with intention, with sovereignty, with choice. Because the truth is, every sip is a signal, every drink is a declaration, and the question is, who's listening on the other side? The return to consciousness, reversing the spiritual effects of alcohol. There's a way back. Even if you've lowered your frequency, even if you've opened doors you didn't mean to, there is always a way to restore your energy. Healing starts with awareness, but it deepens through action, and the first action is simple yet powerful. Stop. Not out of fear, not out of guilt, but out of clarity. Because once you understand what alcohol does to your spiritual field, choosing to let it go stops feeling like restriction and starts feeling like liberation. Every act of sacred self-denial becomes a step toward reconnection. And every day you choose not to numb, you choose to awaken. The first stage is what I call a vibrational fast. It's not just about removing alcohol from your life. It's about making space, clearing out the noise. And when you do, what rises is everything you were avoiding. Old emotions, buried memories, forgotten intuition. But this is good. This is real. It's your soul detoxing. And yes, it can be intense. But after the turbulence comes the lightness. People who stop drinking often report better sleep, deeper dreams, sudden bursts of creativity, and emotional breakthroughs. It's not a coincidence. It's your energy field repairing itself. To support that repair, bring in practices that elevate your vibration. Start with meditation. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just sit, breathe, and be still. 10 minutes a day is enough to begin. Visualize a golden light entering the crown of your head, cleansing every cell, every thought, every old imprint. See it push out the heaviness, the fog, the energetic residue left behind by alcohol. This isn't imagination, it's recalibration. Every breath becomes a reset, and with consistency, your body and spirit begin to remember their original harmony. Another powerful tool, ceremonial plants. No, not the hallucinogenic ones, at least not without deep guidance. I'm talking about simple allies, ceremonial cacao, lavender, mint, rosemary, sage. These plants carry ancient memories. They know how to cleanse. They know how to ground. Prepare a warm cup of cacao with intention, sit in silence, and just feel. Let it open your heart, soften your nervous system, reconnect you to the earth. These rituals, when done daily, become the sacred replacement for the unconscious habits of the past. They become your new frequency anchors. You might also feel called to dive deeper, silent retreats, energy healing, breathwork journeys. These paths are powerful, but they require readiness. The important thing is that whatever you choose, do it with intention. Don't replace one form of escape with another. Spirituality isn't a costume, it's a remembering. And that remembering starts when you give your spirit enough stillness to speak, to whisper truths you forgot, to bring forward gifts you buried. That's what this path offers, a reunion with the sacred version of you. And as you walk this path, there's something essential you must do. Forgive yourself. We all fall asleep sometimes. We all numb out, forget, disconnect. But your return is what matters. The moment you choose to reclaim your energy, you begin rewriting your story. You start remembering that your power was never gone. It was just waiting for space, waiting for you to say enough, waiting for your yes to healing, the reward, sovereignty, presence, clarity. You begin to sense things again. You feel synchronicities reappearing. Your body vibrates differently. You speak with conviction. You love with openness. You dream more vividly. You sleep more peacefully. You become magnetic again. Not because you're chasing the light, but because you are the light. And all of that, just by choosing to come back home to yourself. Now tell me, after everything you've seen, everything you've felt, does alcohol still deserve a place in your life? Or has it taken enough of your clarity, enough of your intuition, enough of your peace? You came here searching for answers, but maybe what you found was a mirror. One that reflected not just the truth about alcohol, but the truth about you and the power you've been giving away, one sip at a time. Let's be honest. How much longer are you willing to live in fog? How many more days will you trade your inner peace for a temporary escape? How many times will you feel disconnected and not know why? You've seen now that alcohol isn't just a drink. It's a frequency, a vibration. And when you drink it, your soul tunes to a station that no longer serves you, that never served you. But here's the beauty. You can shift. You can clear the static. You can raise your energy, reconnect with your higher self, and feel again what it means to be fully present, fully protected, fully awake. It starts with one choice, one moment of awareness, one act of self-respect. Are you ready to remember what it feels like to vibrate at your highest? Tell me in the comments, what struck you the most in this video? What truth are you ready to embrace? Your voice could be the spark that wakes someone else up. This isn't just about you. It's about a whole collective rising. And if this message stirred something inside you, then don't just leave. Subscribe. Now, hit the bell, because what comes next will take you even deeper. We're not here to entertain. We're here to awaken.